Welcome to episode 25 of Chats. I'm Corbin.
I'm Sarah.
And today we are going through our favorite series finales for television shows of all time.
And we're going to go woohoo for 25 episodes.
Woohoo! Woohoo! We made it! A quarter of 100.
A quarter of 100.
And if this is how we're celebrating 25, how are the heck are we going to celebrate 100? We'll have to find out.
We have time to plan.
Exactly. But funny enough that, we're all at home, we're all here, and yet, we're recording on Tuesday last minute.
I know. How does that? We were more on schedule when we were both working and
when we had full schedule.
Full schedules. Like now we're kind of like Sunday afternoon. Oh yeah, we'll do it Monday night, and then Monday night didn't happen, and then we're looking at each other, late Tuesday afternoon when normally it would be posted and saying, "Holy crap, we never got around to our podcast." But the reason this one came about was if you go back an episode or two, we had some feedback for our Schitt's Creek series finale episodes.
On our YouTube page.
Yeah, so we wanted to say thank you so much for giving us some feedback and saying that you thought I was actually batshit crazy and that Corbin was correct.
Yes, thank you for that.
And we're completely fine with that. I've been called worse. It's just more of a case of, not everyone's going to agree.
Yeah,
right?
And they had valid points to back up their original points,
which is fine. So and if you want to see what these comments are, you got to go to the YouTube channel and check out the conversation.
But essentially, it sparked the idea of, because they brought up other series finales, and it brought the idea of, well, what are the best series finales that we think?
And everything's always subjective. So what is my favorite will not necessarily be your favorite or the listener's favorite.
And we want to hear your favorite. So go to our Facebook page or whatever after this and give us your top 3, top 5. Doesn't matter. Just whatever your favorites are.
I think I have a top 4.
Okay. I don't know how many I have.
A random... Yeah. I've gone with a round number this time. Are you going to start?
Yeah. So the first one is kind of a cheat, so I'll do that. Not a cheat, but I am going to say Schitt's Creek because I'm doubling down on what I said from the Schitt's Creek episode. I thought it was a great finale. Watching it live, because all the other shows I've watched have either been on streaming where it's not live every week, and you binge it, or I'm rewatching them. Like they've already been on air and they've ended, and I haven't kept up with it.
Do you think that maybe impacts how you feel about a series finale if you don't have that investment?
Possibly, but the thing is that if I don't have a connection to the show, I won't make it to the series finale. So it's
but I mean, if it's a current show as opposed to, you know what I mean, like something that's aired 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and you watch the series finale, it's like, do you think there's the same amount of investment as if it was something that was being aired presently, like a Schitt's Creek?
I think I stand by the point of, if I'm invested in the story, then I'll be invested in the finale. I think a little bit will wear off because of what you're saying, but I don't think it'll be enough to take on, because TV shows don't really have the best finales, at least the shows that I watch. So this one.
But you also told me before we got to the podcast that you sometimes struggle with finishing.
Yes.
A series to its conclusion. If you know that it's finishing, you really have to be. It's hard to keep your attention for these things.
Yeah, I'm also more of a movie guy, so that also, because it's easier to watch a 2-hour movie than it is to watch a 5-season show.
Right.
So
the more commitment.
Yeah. So the Schitt's Creek one, if you want to hear my in-depth analysis and thoughts on it, go back and listen to, I think, episode 23. But just to wrap it up, they wrapped it up really nicely. It gave you the laughs. It made you happy, sad, and it gives you what you want, and it makes you want a little bit more, and it's perfect. And it leaves it open for one of the showrunners to come back and maybe in a couple of years and do a spinoff or a movie or a special.
Yeah, leaves that door open a bit.
Yeah, which I think a couple of your top shows or series finales might even have done that, where they come back for a movie or a special or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's.
What else have you got?
Oh, you want me to go through the whole list?
Go through your whole list.
Oh, wow. Well, how about you go through yours, too? We'll do it back and forth.
We'll go back and forth? Okay, then let me just...
I want to keep the people in suspense.
Okay. Well, then I will go back to the series finale that I mentioned in that episode, which is Seinfeld, which is the one our listener took exception to.
Yes.
And the listener felt that I was crazy for saying that Seinfeld's finale was a good one because it was just everything thrown in there. And for me, that's actually what I loved about it, was the fact that, first of all, the beauty of Seinfeld is it's the show about nothing. They brag about that. So when you get to the end of the run and it's like, how are we going to wrap up a show about nothing? Really, there were so many talented people that either were just starting their career or this helped launch their career. You go back to those talented people and you revisit those stories. So, you know, to have a conclusion that didn't include, you know, the most obvious is the soup Nazi.
Yeah.
You must have the soup Nazi as part of the wrap up of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And that was just a poignant moment. It's set in the premise of the episode is that they're in court and all these people are coming to testify. When I say they, Elaine,
the main group of characters.
yeah, Jerry, Elaine, George, and Kramer are in court, and they're literally on trial, and all these people are coming through talking about what really horrible people all of them are. It's all tongue in cheek. Because there's certainly worse people in the world than those four. But when you kind of sit there and think, like, what made the viewers love this quartet is the fact that they had a charm, they were endearing, they did stupid things. Some of them did horrible things, some of them were absolutely goofy, but you could identify with some aspect of them.
And it's, you know, all around reasonable. Like, at the end of the day, they're reasonable people.
Well, we all have quirks.
Yeah.
You know, things like I don't want to date a loud chewer. You know, that was one of the episodes about, you know, can you date someone and be with someone who chews loudly? You know, things like that. And I thought, as someone who had watched that program pretty much from day one and didn't really miss too many episodes in between, that was a satisfying conclusion. You could let them go and say, you know what, I'm okay with this conclusion. The fact that, you know, they're flawed people. Everybody kind of got their crack back at them. It was funny. It was I thought, a well-rounded episode. Like I say, that's my opinion. We already know that there's someone out there who thinks I'm crazy, and that's okay
it's subjective.
too. Subjective, yeah.
No, I've seen that one a while ago, but I remember it in the back of my mind. And it's hard, you know, they've had a long run, and it was an iconic run. It was
a body of work for sure, yeah.
So I kind of agree with you where I like that satisfaction of everything being wrapped up, but at the same time I also like just a little bit not told, which
they held back.
Yeah. So my next one is very obvious. It's another show that was invested in, and that's The Office. A lot of people, you know, I didn't watch it live. I watched it on Netflix, like for a whole summer. I just watched it gradually and finished it.
This is the American Office,
not the UK version, but the American version. It's almost like all of my picks are like different types of series finales in the sense where, like, Schitt's Creek, the whole show is consistently good, and then The Office kind of gets bad along the last season. But
once Steve Carell leaves, it's kind of like, boys, you should have wrapped this up with him.
Even the season after Steve Carell leaves is good, and then the last season, which is after that, is a train. Like, I barely got through it. But the thing that I hear a lot of people say, though, is that the series finale is so good, when they're binging it again, they'll watch up to the last season and then skip the whole season and go to the series finale.
Really?
Because it's that good. And
so they really didn't need that whole last season of episodes?
No. So practically, how they lead up to it, I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a wedding that involves two people from The Office, and characters return, and the comedy is almost back to the way it was, because it almost got cartoonishly goofy in the last season. And it was more subtle, realistic humor, kind of like Seinfeld, where it was kind of a show about not just an office. And in the last season, there was some outlandish stuff going on that was kind of why are we doing this? You know.
Yeah, we definitely jumped the shark.
Yes, but the last episode was perfect. It gave us a new setting, and it gave all the characters, even older characters, the chance to come back and wrap up their story as well. And to this day, people, and it's one of those things where like people want more because they finished so strong that people want more, but it gave enough, you know.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it for what it was, but yeah, I it's hard to get through that last season. So if you can get through a season, or if you're one of those people that just skips to it, I have the OCD where if I watch it, I gotta watch it all.
You're committed in.
Yeah, but it's a great finale. It's another one of those wrapping up.
You feel good at the end.
Yeah, and like the characters are going on. It's not like everyone dies. You know, some characters are gonna do different things, move outside the office. Some of them are obviously getting married. Some of them have already moved away from the office. So, you know, there is potential to come back, but you get what you came for practically.
That's good.
So
that's the point, right?
yeah. So that's my second pick. So what is your second pick?
My second pick is the series finale of a show on HBO called 6 Feet Under.
Ah, I know you have watched.
I have like the whole box set
Yeah.
of 6 Feet Under. And it first of all, it's one of my favorite shows, period. Like, and I'm glad I had the box set because I will definitely go back and watch it at some point. Even though I can stream it, whatever. I will watch it again. And so 6 Feet Under is the story of a family whose father is an undertaker, and they all live in the funeral home. They live up, within the building the funeral home is housed in, and the father dies in the first episode. And it kind of sets the tone for the entire body of work because at the beginning of every episode, somebody dies.
Oh.
Like the first scene is some kind of setup where someone's going to die. Before the credits, someone's going to be dead. And in some cases, it was hilarious. In some cases, it was deeply disturbing, and everything in between. So you'd go into the show with this sense of anticipation of not knowing what was going to happen. And I liked it, and maybe it's because I have a bit of a darkness that I don't mind exploring every now and then. But watching that show I thought was fascinating because it explored human emotions and life and death, and watching the siblings and how they interacted with each other, and the fallout of the father dying, and mom in subsequent seasons, moves on, and what does that look like for her and for the kids? And when I say kids, they're all adults. I think the youngest she's in high school. So, and all the people, all the cast, incredibly talented. I'm not going to start listing actors' names, but incredibly talented cast. They often had very talented guest performers as well. But the series finale for me, and that was one of those shows that when I found out it was done, it was just at that point where it's like, yeah, I think we need to wrap this up. So I wasn't sad to see it end like I was with Schitt's Creek, where you kind of feel like, oh no. But again, it was a different feel to that show as well. You're kind of like, yeah, I can see where this has run its course, and you don't want to just rehash the rehash.
You can only kill people a certain couple ways, right?
They got pretty inventive, I will say. But in the series finale and in the final scenes, it was brilliant how they did this. And because the show's been out forever, I have no problem. So if you don't want to know how any of these end, you probably shouldn't be listening to this episode. But it's the scene where you get that satisfaction of seeing what happens in the future. The daughter, the youngest, she's going out. She's finally going to strike out after a lot of personal growth and change. And she's going to go out and find her purpose in life. And it shows her leaving the city. And as she drives out, she's heading across the desert. This is based in the U.S. She's heading across the desert. And as she drives, there's like vignettes that come to her as she's driving a bit. And then there are flashes of the future. So it's things like, her brothers having children, and their life evolving, and whether or not she has children, and finally her mom passes away, and then her siblings, and things like that. So you kind of sit there and say, even though I don't get to follow them on this, like I don't follow the story
Past
anymore,
this point.
I have a satisfaction in knowing what did happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that finality of just being cut off. And even though they didn't spend a lot of time with it, like I say, it's only the last 3 or 4 minutes of the episode. You have that satisfaction of going, oh, that's great, because you've invested so much in those characters. So for me, that was a very satisfactory finale.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a popular way to go, is showing the future for a lot of shows. And sometimes it can be completely out of left field almost, like why are the characters like this? But it sounds,
or if it's not the future you don't want for
yes.
them, that can be dangerous. But
so
this
it sounds like they balanced that one fairly well.
It was good.
Very good. Well, this next one's kind of a cheat. I've been doing a lot of cheats this episode.
Okay.
But it's because it's not a series finale, it's a season finale, but it's an anthology series.
Okay.
So technically the story has wrapped on this. It's a cheat, but I don't care. I am a part of this podcast. I'm a half and half owner of this podcast. I can do what I want.
Alrighty.
So this show is probably the show that I've watched the most times, which is a total of 3 times all the way through. It's called The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
It's on Netflix. I recommend everyone go watch it. So it's like a horror...
Not right now. Wait till you're done the podcast.
Exactly. And listen to all the other podcasts, then go watch it. It's an anthology series, which means each season is a new story.
It's like a standalone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's loosely based off of a Shirley Jackson horror novel. And what it's about is a family... when they move into this house, and they're trying to, classic, make this old crappy house into a nice hotel or a nice estate and then sell it off for more money. They're trying to flip it. So it flashes back between them in the 80s and the kids all grown up and the family grown up in the present day.
Right.
And it bounces back and forth, and the show leaves you with so many details and questions and all that the series finale or a season finale is so perfectly, like, this is a case where I don't want to know, or I don't want anything left open. If it's an anthology series, finish it off.
Yeah.
It's almost
you
like
need it tied into it with a little bow.
It's not necessarily a show. It's more so a 5-hour movie where you finish the movie. And so this finale, it ends with, like, people die. Things are not left as, oh, maybe. It's left as, this is how things are now.
Yeah.
You deal with it practically, and all the characters' decisions are final, and it's a fantastic finale that answers questions and, gives back not only for the past story, but also the present story, and it's really well done. And I'm excited for they're doing, as I said, another season where it's a completely new story. So, I'm not one of those guys who likes only one type of series finale. I do like the ones where they finish it off for good, but I also like the ones where they have you want to ask for a little bit more. So I feel that one was a great example of, you gave me what I wanted. Now I'm off on my way,
Yeah, you feel like you could leave, you could move on from it.
For sure. And it helps that there's going to be another season. So...
But a different story. So kind of like American Horror Story.
Exactly, American Horror Story.
It's got the same concept, but a different tale.
Yeah, True Detective and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that is my third pick.
Okay. Well, my third pick, and I noticed a trend. Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Remind me of the trend when I'm done all of mine, because I think there's a trend here. So my next one is MASH.
Oh, okay.
And again, I think if you're of a certain age, you know what MASH is. But basically, it's wartime. It's the Korean War. It's the whole conversation about, it's a comedy, but it's a dark comedy at times.
Yes.
So you've got the drama and the undercurrent of, you're living in a war, but there's also the lightness of the banter between the characters. Incredibly talented cast. It started off as a movie and then became a series, and when the time came for it to end, it was like February 1983 that they finally wrapped it up. I think the whole cast was ready to move on to other things that had been they had I think it was like the 256th or 255th episode was the series finale, so they'd been around for a little while. the whole feel of that particular episode was that it was to feel like a film, which I think is appropriate because originally it was a film. So to kind of give it that bookend experience, there's every scene is excellent. You have that anticipation of them leaving. They leave one at a time. You know, the emotion of saying goodbye to these characters that you've known and loved. And then, of course, the very end is when Hawkeye, playing by Alan Alda, is being airlifted out of the zone and going back to his life. And he looks down, and as he leaves the hospital, the field hospital, there's a message on the ground, and it's spelled out in stones to say goodbye. And absolutely not a dry eye. Anybody who watched that was just messed up by that, because again, there was such a sense of connection with the characters and with the storyline, because it was not that much earlier that war was happening at that time.
Yeah, it was still fresh in a lot of people's minds, and we think that we were connected to Schitt's Creek, where it was like 10 or 15 episodes a season for the first little bit.
Yeah, that's
250 something episodes, you said.
Yeah,
where you were with these characters through the highs and lows.
Yeah,
you know, I haven't watched the show all the way through, and I haven't seen the finale, so I can't relate. But just from what you're saying, it sounds like it would be.
It was a relationship. People watched MASH. It was something that, you know, if you had your TV guide, you circled it every week, or you didn't even need to circle it because you knew when it came on. You watched it. You changed your schedule because you were watching MASH. You know, and it's lasted the test of time because that show is playing reruns, and that's why I know it. Well, when shows like half that age aren't being rerun right now. And you'll watch it because you know it's going to be funny.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good episode, even if there's something sad.
Or just good storytelling.
Exactly. Yeah. Clever dialogue, too.
Yeah, snappy, as you said, witty dialogue between characters.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your next one?
Once again, I am a half owner of this podcast.
Oh my.
And I can do what I want.
We're taking a lot of artistic license here.
I am. I'm throwing down an Uno reverse card, and I'm putting in my least favorite
okay.
series finale of all time.
Oh, really? Should we hold on to that?
No.
Okay.
Right now, Game of Thrones.
Yes, I would. Yes.
I talk about investment. I didn't watch Game of Thrones live.
I got you started on.
You got me started on Game of Thrones.
And I apologize.
We binged it. Even Dad got into it, and Dad doesn't like watching TV shows or doesn't keep up with TV shows like us, but he was there every single episode.
I started watching it on the treadmill.
Yes.
Because, again, I had it on DVDs. It was easy to watch on the treadmill. Yeah. And then I kind of got away from it for a little bit. And then then I tried it again. And then I got away from it again. This is like when it was probably around season 5, and I'm still trying to get through season 1. And then we find it, oh my gosh, it's going to be over. And you wanted that communal experience about we should all be watching this at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's when we made the commitment. I guess that was about a year ago now.
It was January 1st of 2019. I remember that.
We went hardcore. I think that whole Christmas break or that New Year's break, we were watching it all the time. It was
a year ago almost now because it's late April that the show either started. I think it started in late April and finished in
for that last season.
Yeah. But the first 6 seasons are peak television. As we said, like it's a movie every episode. It was phenomenal. But the thing was, after season 6, they ran out of source material from the books.
Yeah.
And they went on their own. And season 7 was shaky. Just kind of like The Office, where the season is shaky, and then the finale was trash.
We were so disappointed. Like, at season 6, we were like, this couldn't get any better. It's like every episode we were just like...
And we were right.
Clamoring for the next episode. And then we got to season 7, and you kind of felt like, wait a minute, do I even know this show anymore? Is this the same show? It didn't feel the same.
And what I took away from it, and... what I still take away from it to this day is we got into Game of Thrones because of the dialogue, the characters, and the intrigue and the story. Mm-hmm. And there were battle scenes that you didn't even see but you didn't want to see it because
they weren't crucial to the storyline.
Well, no, and
the outcome was, they could tell you rather than showing you 20 minutes of blood and gore.
More entertaining than probably actually seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's debatable with some of the scenes in later seasons where it's action scenes, but in season 7 it was constant action scenes. And even in season 8, it was to the point where it's like, we don't care anymore. Like, it just got way too action focused, and the seasons were shortened. Usually it was around, I believe, 10 or 12 episodes for a regular season. And the last couple seasons were 8 and 7.
Modified,
which is brutal when you're trying to wrap up a story so quickly like they were.
Well, and especially when there were certain aspects of the story that you weren't even exploring anymore. Like the whole thing with Cersei and Jaime. Like, they became background characters. We never saw them anymore.
Until in the last episode, they snap and we get like a 5 minutes for them out of nowhere. And it's like, why are we going back to this now in the season finale?
But that is where when we talk about, having a moment, to wrap up things, that's where it feels like the showrunners were saying, okay, we got to do something with these two. What are we going to do? Oh, we're going to give them this moment. Like, it literally felt that deliberate as opposed to, a fluid extension of the story. And I mean, we're far from the most knowledgeable individuals as far as
I wouldn't say that myself.
People who have critiqued that season and that finale, but there's so many different perspectives, even as far as what happens to Dany's character over being a Targaryen, a crazy Targaryen. And it's like, well, this kind of smacks of a bit of misogyny, because she started off being a very good person, and if she was
very empowering for a lot of the women, because women were not portrayed in that show very well at the start.
And if you want to sit there and say, well, she went crazy, she was doing all these crazy things, let us compare her to her male counterparts and the things that they were doing. Was she doing worse than what some of the males were doing? We had people being tortured in the basement of castles. So, there's a lot of things to compare it to. But no, I would wholeheartedly agree with you that as far as for the build-up, for the budget, for the talent, like in all aspects and I remember I told you when I was first convincing you to start watching it, is like, it's like a movie every single episode. It was beautifully shot, beautifully edited. The music was great. The costumes were outstanding.
Everything about it was fantastic. It's just the writing let the showdown in that last season.
Well, and it had that feel of, you spend, the whole weekend writing a great paper that you're going to submit on Monday, and then you leave it till Sunday night at 11 o'clock and you just hammer out the last page. That's what it felt like, right? So it was a disappointment. I know we weren't the only ones disappointed.
No. So that was a little twist in there for you guys to make sure you guys were paying attention. That was my least favorite.
Your least favorite
TV series finale. Okay. Don't watch it, but watch up to season 6.
Well, season 6 is good. My final, back to the ones that I thought were well done. And again, this is going to be a lesser known show because it's from the 90s. There is an actor, his name's Bob Newhart, and he's very talented comedic actor, very dry. He's almost got like that straight man persona. He's not like a wisecracker, but he had been in a couple of different projects throughout his career. So the one that I'm going to reference is called Newhart, and it was the episode, the finale that aired in May of 1990. So what they did was they had the series wrapping up, and the whole audience was with them thinking, okay, Newhart's wrapping up, the story had reached its end. And what they did, again, I'm not going to get too far into it because it is an older episode, but basically they had him go to sleep with his wife in the show, and then he wakes up in the morning. And he wakes up and he's in bed with his TV wife from the Bob Newhart Show. So it's kind of confusing because the first show was called The Bob Newhart Show.
Yeah.
And then he came back years later with Newhart.
Oh.
So he actually woke up in the second show with his wife from the first show and made it seem like the entire show of Newhart was a dream.
Oh.
Which, in one hand, like for people that were really invested, they kind of felt like, this is kind of a burn. Yeah. But I loved it. I thought that was so clever, the fact that they would flip the script like that. And to be able to get the actress who is Suzanne Plachette, to have her come back and to be able to do it that way was just, it was brilliant.
It seems like that reminds me of the season of Dallas where the writers wanted to go in a different direction and the fans didn't like it. So at the end of the season, they said it was all a dream, and everyone flipped shit and said, "What was going on?"
I remember that, and that's because Patrick Duffy, and I'm gonna have to look it up, and Pamela. Oh my God, that's gonna drive me nuts. Anyway, there was a casting issue where there was debate about whether or not Patrick Duffy was going to come back, and he thought he was going to leave the show, and he was there for like the first couple of episodes, and then he died. Mm-hmm. And then Pam, who is his TV Victoria Principal. Oh, geez, everybody is screaming at me. It's Victoria Principal. But his on-screen wife, throughout the season, she grieves him. She moves on. Of course, within 10 minutes finds a new love interest. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the season finale is she's in her home and she can hear the shower running. And she goes to the bathroom, opens the door, and there's Bobby. Yeah.
And people lost their minds.
They did. Well, and I think that's the first time that had really been done that way. And I think people felt cheated.
Mm-hmm. Because and still people feel cheated.
We went in this direction and you pulled the rug out from under us. So, I don't know. I thought that was kind of clever too.
Yeah. And the thing is, for a show like the Bob Newhart show where you're talking about, is it like a comedy type show?
Oh, yeah.
So, something like that, people would probably be more willing to accept that was a dream rather than a show like Dallas, where it's a fairly serious show where
it's more of a drama,
consequences actions have consequences. Mm-hmm. So I can understand that, but I like that idea as well, where it's kind of the trippy, where are we type vibe.
Well, especially if you don't, in a show like Newhart, there was never a build up to anything. It was always that situational comedy. You go in and, oh no, the milk is, I have to go out and buy milk because I ran out of milk. And it's like you make a whole story, a whole episode about that. How do you make an impactful conclusion on something that's kind of like grabbing pudding? So the fact that they really did a 180 and just flipped the script on it, I thought was interesting. But the thing I wanted to talk about as far as my overall impression with some of these finales is, I find it interesting that probably the most recent episode that I felt moved by was 6 Feet Under.
Yeah, a lot of yours are
most of them are old,
retro.
And I think for me, it's because it comes down to the fact that TV is different now.
Yes.
There are so many ideas. There are so many ways to get your TV, to be able to understand or to be able to invest in something. So 2005 was when 6 Feet Under wrapped up. So we're looking at 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's the most recent, other than Schitt's Creek, but
that wasn't on your list.
That wasn't on my list. Anyway, so to sit there and think, well, why are all these ones that resonate for me older? And it's like there were fewer options.
Yes.
You didn't have all these platforms, all these. I mean, there's shows that come up and then they're done like that. And I'm trying to think. There was one I thought of. I should have written it down. But there's one show and I thought I really like that show, and it's too bad that they just ended it like that, because it didn't get a finale. It just was done.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the norm now, where you don't necessarily get a season finale. You just, if you don't do well in your season, you just don't get picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also with so many options on Netflix and stuff like that, people, like for me, it's, if this show isn't grabbing me in any way, then I don't have any obligation to stick with it because it's the only thing on this channel right now. I have millions of other options on Netflix.
That's my point.
So,
I think that's the difference, is trying to find something currently where I sit there and I go, and we've watched, actually, here's a little shout out that Dead to Me is coming back. And if you haven't seen Dead to Me,
that's a great show.
Start watching that one. That's excellent. And it had a good season finale. But again, there's nothing that I've watched lately where it's like, well, that's the end of it.
Yes.
And this is so amazing. It's remarkable.
Till the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the anthology series shows.
Shorter.
Yeah. Shows like Fargo anthology series. Very well done. So tell us what your favorite TV series finales are. We'd love to hear them.
Or like Corbin, you don't have to go by the rules. Pick anything, apparently.
Well, they're not half owners of the podcast. But we'd love to hear from you either way. Plus, if you guys haven't watched a show to the very end, during quarantine, what are you doing?
Now's your time.
Now's your time. Watch a bunch of them. Get back to us.
Watch until the end of season 6 of Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And then just hit the finale.
And then imagine
realize...
a better ending than what you actually got.
Yes.
But where can they get a hold of us?
You can send us an email at chatspodcast@gmail.com. You can comment on our Facebook page. You can comment on our YouTube channel. You can also download us.
You can find the podcast on YouTube, where you can subscribe and like and share it with all your friends. And on all platforms, including Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, where you can follow and share us on there as well. All past 25 plus episodes you guys can listen to during quarantine as well. And thank you guys for listening to our special 25th episode. Which
it's special because he has his hands up in the air doing jazz fingers.
And I did a higher pitch than normal. But yeah, this has been me, Corbin.
And Sarah.
And thank you guys for listening, and stay tuned for our latest chats.